So I want to put things into a perspective that would be easy for a lot of people to digest, that normally don't come across a lot of this information on their own or in day-to-day life, because it's not given out and it's kind of hidden to some degree, and you have to search for it and you have to compare sources. And I've done a lot of that over the past 2 years, specifically 2 years, and I've been getting into economics and studying economics and realizing how much that affects so many things. Pretty much everything in the world is dependent on economics, because, like I've said in past videos, economics is not about money. It's actually about resources, and those resources happen to reflect money, and the money becomes another resource. And what economics is, it's even the word eco, as an ecosystem, as in our environment, is everything that we know of that exists is part of economics, and how using that and balancing that and acquiring and dispersing, anything with shifting these resources around has to do with economics. And money just becomes another resource in the view of economics. So think of things being converted into different things. Allocating resources. When you allocate resources, you can convert that into another resource, that's money, by either trading it, selling it, and just so you get the idea. And something to really take into consideration is the economic growth, the growth of all those resources and the ability to harvest and procure and trade and to sell those things that China has been able to accomplish. So to understand all of that, I think I laid it out pretty basic to anyone can kind of understand what I mean. Now to understand the powerhouse that China has become and that is becoming, and I'll tell you why a lot of these things are happening, and I'll tell you why that it's important to understand the resources they have. And it's not just the resources as in rare earth materials, which is why they're expanding, and why I think that they're actually really backing the Taliban. And I'm going to get into that. And we as a country, the United States, I'm speaking of the United States, and I understand there's a lot of different people from around the world that actually do watch this. I have subscribers from different places. I don't have a large amount of subscribers yet, but they're all just as important as each other. And there's people from like foreign and native islands, there's people that are from Canada, there's people from the United States, there's people in Europe that watch this. And I think it's important to realize the power that each country and nation could have. And I think it's important to understand the power that China is in control of. Not only are they a large country, one of the top countries in size, but the amount of resources they have is astonishing. And the alternative resources that they have, and by alternative resources I mean stuff like all the machines and factories and the ability with their technicians and vendors that they have compared to the rest of the world. That's extremely important to understand in this conversation, because we, when I say we, I mean the United States has lost a huge amount of the ability to create a lot of these products that we have built overseas. And we have them built overseas for a reason. And one of the main reasons we did that was so we could do it cheaper, because the currency and the value and the worth of the money that they used in China, especially in the 70s, was so low that for them it was a lot. So the Chinese, in their minds, were making lots of money, and they had an enormous growth themselves. And at the same time, America was able to boost and make things a lot cheaper by sending them there, because they started sending their equipment, they started sending their technicians to teach other people in that country, and they started sending everything over that we could in order to make things for cheaper. And we also, in the process, trained everyone that was in China and worked in these factories and did all that work, how to use our equipment, how to build things, manufacture stuff, how to basically do everything that we did. And we have given them the ability to do all those things, plus the resources. And I'll get into why that's a very big problem, especially with a country that has seemingly turned so malicious. And I have no doubt that some of the stuff that comes out of China is kind of some propaganda stuff, but I am well aware of some of the things they do that are just very immoral, and it shines a light on their whole kind of philosophy as a nation, and we can probably get into some of that too. Now, one of the things that's coming to my conscious is the fact that, or consciousness, is the fact that a lot of these deals were made in the 70s, and this was before, you know, people had access to the internet, and the regular person or the layman had no idea what was going on. They just had to go by everything the news said, whatever they read. So they were kind of at the mercy of all these corporations, which has kind of gone to their head. Even though news back in the day, I think, was a little bit more honest, because it was a bit more straightforward. Even going back, looking at some of those reports, it's actually interesting to watch some old news broadcasts. But I think it's also really interesting to understand that the growth that China has had, and how we're able to kind of see it because of the birth of the internet, and how now not only did the whole snowball effect continue of us sending stuff there and losing control of our own products and our own factories and workers and stuff like that, but it really has an exponential effect with its growth of sending everything over, because now we have all the electronic ways to do it, because now we don't have to send even technicians over to show them how to do things physically. They could literally watch videos from universities in America. They can go online, they can learn all these things and further themselves even more. As you can see, we, specifically the United States, more than any other countries, have given them the ability to have this growth and to grow into such a size that now they're competing with us. It's kind of like if you're a magician, right? Let's say you're a magician and you're talking to someone else who wants to become a magician, and then all of a sudden you teach them all your tricks and you show them how to do everything, and they become a magician. That now they start trying to take all the shows that you would have got, and not only have you taught them everything that you know, but now they have that ability and the wisdom to start coming up with their own. So now they're kind of beating you at your own game, or they're at least, you know, par and par. And that becomes a problem when they have more resources than you. You know, it's like if that person who was taught to be a magician was also extremely rich and the original magician was poor, now he could buy lots of things to make his tricks even more so and get bigger audience, and kind of you get stuck off to the side and then no one ends up wanting to see you. I don't know why I chose magicians, but it just seemed like a very visual way to do that. You can do that with anything, you know, teaching skills to someone else and they try to start taking over. That becomes a malicious act after a while, because they're consciously knowing that they're taken away from you after you've given them everything. So there's valuable lessons to learn there. So now with the technology, we're also able to uncover a lot of the stuff that these news organizations have been hiding and pushing to the side, things that they don't really want you to see. And it's given me, at least, a broader scope of all the things kind of happening here, because there's a lot of history missing because there was no constant media surveillance and phones recording things and conversations and going on behind the scenes. So I think that deal was not only to incentivize things to be made cheaper in the United States in order for people to buy more and for money to circulate more and more, but I think it was also in part designed to help China. And I almost feel like it probably has something that I should look more into this specifically. I bet it has something to do with the United Nations, and also how it led to China becoming one of the top dogs in the United Nations, and why they've been able to have so much control and influence over the rest of the world. It's been growing and growing, and that's becoming dangerous because now we get into how China has influenced the United States. I can't really speak too much for other countries, but I can talk about the United States. And I've done a lot of shows. I've done a lot of technical work for events and high-end, high-scale events around the world. You know, I have another tech channel. I go over some of the stuff, but I've done audio and sound for like what's it called? Lifetime Achievement Awards. I was there when the guy Virgil, or whatever his name is, from Virgin, created the whole space in Denver. I was there when he first announced it at that event, doing sound and audio, and a lot of other places too. I've even set up for the DNC, the GOP, and a lot of other places. And I noticed that a lot of the venues I was going to, like in Manhattan and in the city, and even, you know, in like Virginia and Pennsylvania, it almost seemed like every time I was going to a venue or a place, they were being bought out by Chinese businessmen, foreign Chinese businessmen too. And it was really odd. The Waldorf was one in particular that sticks out in my mind, because that's where we did like the Don Rickles show, and there was like everyone from John Mayer to Jack Black and Sting, Aretha Franklin, Stevie Wonder, the list goes on, for a lot of those shows. And I remember them saying how we might not end up doing shows there anymore because the hotel had been bought out by Chinese businessmen, and Chinese specifically, not as in race, but as in like nationality. Because what they've been doing was, over the years, they've been slowly just buying more and more land and more businesses and things that are based in America, and going into companies and sending over spies that work and become teachers and professors in school to start spreading propaganda. I mean, you go back, like I said, fact check whatever I'm saying, and we can talk about this. But even the United States government and the FBI has been finding Chinese spies in the universities, especially when the whole COVID thing was going on. I mean, not that it stopped, but when it first started. And a lot of these hackers that, and I have no doubt that, you know, there's definitely plenty of them that are Russian, but you got to understand something too. When people hack, they cover their tracks, and they're going to make it seem like they're coming from somewhere else, because the internet is traceable. And so what they do is they have or build their own VPNs and servers around the world, and they use other ports in order to launch these attacks. And so chances are, with a lot of these hacks, you're not going to find out who actually really did it, and that's the crazy part. You know, when we were being hacked with our pipeline, our food supply, a lot of other places, and they hack into buildings. It could be anything from, you know, Equifax to gather people's credit scores and their accounts and their money, even stuff like the energy companies, and even retail places like Target and Amazon and a lot of other countries. They find out that what's going on is they're gathering information, and they gather as much information and telemetry as possible in order to find out about people, in order to find out about anything possible. That's what you got to understand. The mathematicians and stuff that they have working for these countries and for the government and for the CCP and for the spies, they don't just like look at something and go, okay, that's good. They literally dissect every single thing you can imagine. They have people that study how people spend money, where they get their money from, where they're located. They can literally take this information and split it 1 million ways and find everything that's possible psychologically about the mass population, eating habits, anything you can imagine, buying habits, shopping, whatever it is, taste in clothes, in cars, whatever it is. They work on finding it because all that information is valuable. It's called mining. They're just mining information. And they eventually take that and they use it and they sell it. But not only do they sell it, but they also keep it for themselves. Like a lot of these DNA tests, they get sent to Chinese companies overseas, and they get information because they have contracts and deals with these companies here in America. And they go, all right, well, we'll give you a certain amount of money if you give us this information, that money. So they take it and they turn those resources that they just got and bought, and they turn those into more resources. They multiply the resources. And they go, okay, so these are the genetics of 50,000 people. All right, now we're going to study that so we can come up with new medications, so we can come up with diseases that are more efficient, so we can come up with personality advertisements that attract certain personality types based on your genetic material. Like, this is way beyond like what the average person just thinks of. They are doing it. This is all science. Like, what do they do in China? They're breeding humans and monkeys together. They've created zygotes of combined animals, splicing DNA from humans and different animals together. What happens when these organisms grow and they become conscious living entities? These are the kind of moral dilemmas that we're going to have to face. And they found out that these COVID tests that people have taken for the past 2 years are also just collecting everyone's DNA. And now China has the largest DNA database in the world of American citizens, including the DNA that they gather from pregnant women when women take tests and go to the doctor. Like, this is all just like, this is like reality. This is the reality that people not only don't see, but they don't want to see, and they don't want to understand or think that this stuff is happening. And so now that we kind of understand the enormous economic powerhouse that China is becoming, we can start seeing the influence. Because once that machine starts going, it doesn't want to slow down, and it wants to grow and grow and grow. And you see them hacking into companies like even marketplaces and finding out how they do stuff. And now they're starting their own IPOs. They're starting to take over the market and the global market. That's one of the reasons why there's so many problems right now with the market, and why the government is trying to stop some, and the amount of spying that you're doing with like the apps that they have on your phone. It just never ends, and most people are completely oblivious to the realities of what's actually going on. And now we find that we have ISIS and the Taliban being backed by China. Now, why would China do that? Why would China want to back the Taliban? And it also seems, I'm going to go into it actually. So we have China having an influence on America, and they have influence on the products that could be made. They have an influence on all these corporations now that they're infiltrating, on all these universities, and the universities that teach the children. So now the children are being brainwashed and pushed into this crazy kind of psychotic behavior, where like all this strange genderism and stuff that's happening is all pushed behind the scenes from this Chinese movement. They have psychologists that understand and know how to like unravel the mind, and you're having all these kids coming out of school being angry at the world. They don't even know what is reality anymore. because their minds have been so unwound by the influence of their professors that have been trying to teach this communist Marxist ideology, which is what China uses. China's a communist country, remember that. And so this is really just to get the larger picture of kind of what's going on behind the scenes. And it seems kind of strange, and I'm not going to lie, I thought it was kind of strange during the whole voting process that took place here in America. I thought that was very strange. Has it totally been proven that anything was affected? Not really, but there's plenty of evidence that shows that something could have happened. And I find it kind of strange how the United States now is kind of emulating everything that China's doing. Everything from the way they were handling COVID to how they had the health apps rolling out on people's cell phones. China's been using that for years. I touch on that already, so if you've seen some of my videos, you know where I'm going with that, where we're pretty much just mimicking China's take, and we're one step away from having those prison camps and locking up people who they think are unfit or unhealthy and putting them in there. It's incredibly close to that edge, and not many people realize it. So to kind of put all that into perspective here, you see the larger influence, the more that's revealed that China actually has on the world. And now that I've covered before with the Belt and Road Initiative, how they've been taking over certain places around the world where they have their influence, they build up ports, and what they do is they say, we're going to have this Belt and Road, which is kind of like the Silk Road from, you know, thousands of years ago, kind of reemerge into this new thing. And it's a powerhouse. So it's what they do is they tell countries that we'll give you percentage of our income if you agree to these terms of the loan, and in place of that, what we'll do is we'll build our facilities in your country, and we'll have harbors built, we'll have airports built, we'll have railways built across all of Asia and into Europe and down into Africa. And what they do is they take those ports and they make these, they build for free in these countries by saying, hey, we're giving you a loan in order to use this, but you have to pay us back. And in the end, these countries are not going to be able to pay back China. And so what's going to happen is they're going to have to forfeit land, the land that they've already let them build on. And so now they have an economic power hold on all the countries that they've kind of technically invaded. Sneakily in order to do this. And what's dangerous about that is if they start doing this to India kind of backed away and was like, we kind of see where this is going, so we don't want it. So now China's kind of really pissed off at India, because India did not accept the terms and conditions, especially once they started seeing a lot of other countries fall victim to those practices. So now we have the Afghanistan situation, and I think it's really interesting how we have Biden, which seems to be going along with whatever China does. His family has ties to China, and it's kind of strange because now we see that he basically let Taliban take Afghanistan. And what's the problem with that? And where does China and everything get involved? Well, China gets involved because they're backing the Taliban. And the Taliban just freed the ISIS prisoners in the jails. And what's the problem with all this? Well, Afghanistan has over $3 trillion worth of materials, earth materials, rare earth materials, that can be used for building anything from metals to medicines, to, you know, everything from zinc to iron, you name it, oil, and those over $3 trillion worth of resources would be a huge amount and would be a huge hand to China. And if China starts taking over Afghanistan and they have the Taliban and ISIS working for them because of the promises and deals they make with them, which they're already overzealous, so they'd probably be easy to convince them the way China does things. And then they can go into Pakistan. they already have radicals and stuff in Pakistan as well. And if Pakistan falls, that's right next to India. And I told you before how there's a problem between India and China. In fact, right on the border there have been skirmishes for the past couple months now, past couple years really. And what's important about that? Well, if you scroll down here, you see how the Indian Ocean is called the Indian Ocean because there's India right there. And if all those ports get built, now this gives access to China globally across everything, especially if they wanted to create a navy to take over that area and send out submarines and whatever they want, because they've been pumping out submarines, but they have kind of a problem here, because right here with Japan, they have all these little islands here, and then they have Taiwan, and then they have the Philippines right here, and then Malaysia in here. So they're almost, in a sense, kind of landlocked in a way where there's ports and U.S. bases on all these islands, a lot of them anyway, and Japan has them. So there's kind of a wall that's being built right here. And underneath that, then we have Guam, where we have U.S. bases there. And that's kind of there to kind of protect Australia a bit. But Australia has already had a stranglehold on by China for a while now. China has a stranglehold on Australia because a lot of the imports and stuff that Australia gets comes from China nowadays. So that's why this whole thing is kind of a mess. And the islands that are in there, I've already gone over a lot of this in other videos. So check out Belt and Road Initiative video to find out more about that. And as you can see, like, the more time goes on, the more things kind of turn in favor of China, and this is why they're becoming kind of a big threat here. They've been hacking other countries like crazy. They've been gathering everything, so they've been able to mimic their economy to further themselves. They're becoming more independent and self-dependent. They have the largest say, or as a nation, a particular nation, in the United Nations. WHO, they have a huge influence on WHO, the World Health Organization. They have prevented Taiwan from joining the United Nations for the longest time. They have almost no input into the WHO organization. They have backing behind Taliban and the ISIS, which now has United States military equipment. They want the resources that Afghanistan has. They're going to push the Belt and Road Initiative into other countries. They're going to gain more resources. Other countries are going to come in debt to China, so now China is going to be able to do what they want with them. So it's really becoming a huge mess, and a lot of this is enabled because of what happened in Afghanistan. And it seems like Biden kind of just handed it over to them and gave it to them with the lives of many people, and Americans and people from other countries. Like, this is why this is such a big problem. This is why that the growth of China and the loss of Afghanistan is a huge problem. Because look what that does. That pretty much connects China to the rest of the Middle East. If you go into Afghanistan, you literally have connections to all these countries going around. If you do that with any other country, it doesn't work. Like, if you look at it, you know, we have all these other countries surrounding. The one country that would benefit you the most to take over would be Afghanistan, because not only do they have over $3 trillion worth of material, but now you can literally build railways to every single one of these countries, and you can gather all the resources from the Middle East directly into there, funnel it all into there, and away from India. Like, do you see what the problem is here? It's not just a country in the Middle East. And then what happens if you do that? Like, this is why it's so dangerous, because now Afghanistan can be the hub for the rest of the Middle East, and then you can actually make your way into Russia here, Kazakhstan, and now you can have a huge, large trading settlement with Russia, which is just a positive for probably both of them, to be honest. And then you can start building railways that go into Saudi Arabia, and especially if ISIS militants go crazy and take over, and they're backed by China, or a number of other things happen, like Iran and Iraq. If you go for those three, because think about this too, you got to remember that Iran and China work together a lot. You know, China actually protects a lot of the Iranian pirate boats that go out here and raid different nations' boats. So that's the missing link, is Afghanistan. If China goes for Afghanistan, does some sort of deal with Iran, and now they're able to freely flow through here, they can gather all the resources from the Middle East, they can cut off India, so now India is going to be in debt to them, even though that's what they tried to avoid. Now you can go through Iraq, and you can go right past Saudi Arabia, you can go right into Egypt. You know, especially now there's a whole nother thing going on between like Egypt and Ethiopia and this entire thing that they're building, which is backed by China too, with their whole Belt and Road Initiative. You know, if Ethiopia cuts off the rivers that flow into Egypt, Egypt is going to be at the mercy of whoever is controlling Ethiopia. This is all of this is why it's extremely bad, the amount of growth China has and the fall of Afghanistan. That's the whole problem here. You know, it's not just like, oh, now we have like terrorists and Taliban running around killing people. It's like, if that country gets lost to China, goodbye, Middle East. So I kind of trying to put all this into perspective, and why the behavior of the administration of the United States has been very odd lately, and it seems like everything that the Biden has done has helped China massively. We have just armed Afghanistan, which is being backed by China, with United States military. And all this is happening before the ceremonial 20-year anniversary of 9/11. I want people to see and understand the whole economic situation. And then I want to go over also, now that you understand that whole Middle East concept right there, let's go over to Taiwan. I don't know if I cover this. See this? When I was talking about these walls over here of islands, if China gets Taiwan, that's the open door to the ocean right there. That's the open door. Now, China likes to pretend that Taiwan is a Chinese country, and they get mad. And that's how you know that they had a control over Hollywood stars. What's his name? John Cena or something. Once he said something, he accidentally called Taiwan a country. And then he got threatened by China. And then what does he do? He starts speaking in perfect, fluent Chinese about how he's sorry and how he made a mistake and he should never do it again, and he hopes they forgive him. That's crazy. Did anyone even know that he spoke Chinese? How many Hollywood stars and people in Hollywood speak Chinese fluently? Like, it's kind of weird. It's kind of weird. You know? And so if Taiwan falls here, that's the open gate to the ocean right here. And that's huge. Of course, we have islands in Guam and stuff, but the small amount of islands over here is not going to really do much against the amount of submarines they could pump out. Because right over here in East China, the East China Sea, that's extremely shallow water. So you can't get submarines out that are undetectable. We've been able to detect their submarines, even though I think a lot of times we've been looking the other way for some reason. Once this administration came in, they looked the other way. It almost seems like Joe Biden, whoever is pulling his strings anyway, which I think some of it has to do with the Chinese government, who is ever pulling his strings, I think made it so he purposely fudged the whole Afghanistan thing in order for it to fall out of our hands, in order to give China that whole section of the map we just talked about. So this is why it's extremely important. And I've already talked about in other videos about the importance of Taiwan and the resources and the computer chip situation. So go check those out if you're curious. I just kind of wanted to get all that out because it's really strange. So I'm just going to do a quick little recap of what we learned. We learned that the massive influence that the Chinese have over Hollywood, over United States corporations, over our economy, their economy, over the schools here. They're teaching kids and brainwashing kids and like disconnecting their brains, essentially. The problems that they're having between India, or the Belt and Road Initiative we touched on, why it's extremely important that Afghanistan does not fall under Chinese-backed Taliban, why Taiwan must not fall to China, and how they influence the hacking that's been going on around the world, and collecting everyone's DNA and everyone's scores and financial information from banks, from everywhere else. I think it's extremely important for people to understand the situation instead of just like see the situation. Just because it's a lot of these people are lacking the context behind this entire situation right now. You know what would be like the icing on the cake for China is if the coronavirus lab leak or anything like that comes out and it turns out that it was America and the United States that was behind it by doing research and activities and stuff in China, and it wasn't the Chinese government that let out the COVID, then it's goodbye America, because nobody's going to have our back after that. No one's going to have our back after they found out that it was the United States' fault, and how Biden's handling this. No, especially that. The fact that people are going to realize that Biden is botching all this stuff, and then it was America that released COVID that did all this. And that would be devastating to America, and that would be it. That would be like the end. So whatever happens, we have to make sure that it didn't come from America or labs and backed by Americans, unless it was a co-op, and China was involved as well. That would be a saving grace, as strange as that sounds like it would be. But if it does, we better find those people that are responsible and deal with them. If there were any Americans that had any involvement in this whole COVID situation, they need to be reprimanded immediately, because that can cause absolute havoc if that festers into something else. So I hope you enjoyed this video. It's kind of a lot for me to get out. I was trying to think of ways how I'd be able to explain that, but it turned out pretty well. Just think about all this stuff that I've said. Fact check anything that you want to. Leave it in the comments if you find that I'm wrong about anything, and we can even have a discussion or debate or whatever you want. I love you guys. This was one of my longer videos, but I think it was worth it. I realize now that a lot of people like to just chill out to YouTube and do whatever they do, whether they're eating or they're relaxing. You know, that's what I do anyway. I like to keep and watch things that are very informational, and if I watch anything, that's what I do. It's pretty much YouTube, and I watch documentaries and courses and all these things. So hope you were comfortable for this one. So I'll catch you in the next video. Take care. I love everybody. I love everybody in the entire world, and I just want the best for everyone in this entire world. You know, I don't want corrupt government systems taking advantage of people in any nation. People should have the right and the freedom to be a part of their country and their economy and the way they run the country. I can't tell other countries what to do, but I think that the less kind of restrictions we have on the people within each country, the better it is, because the country I'm in right now is kind of turning to shit. I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of like crumbling in a way where it's like controlled demolition, and it's kind of scary. And as I put these things together, it's starting to become a little bit clearer as to why, I think. So, take care, love you, check you out in the next video, and stay well and stay informed. Peace out.